And it's MCanning.
Even though it's an online tournament, they say if you turn all your fans off and all your audio devices off and you listen closely, press your ear to your window, you can hear his fans cheering from across the world every time MCanning is introduced in a StarCraft game. Fun fact for you, Wardy.
That doesn't even surprise me.
No, it shouldn't.
It's just obvious.
So the probe's going to go behind the mineral line. Is he trying to make Scarlett think that he could be doing a little cheeky cannon?
Yeah, it could be. Scarlett parks a drone to the side where the pylons would go up. But yeah, he's just getting ready to drop a Nexus, but there's a probe over there that was being... sorry, a drone over there that was being annoying, but he gets the block, so if there was an attempt to be a hatchery, it was not going to get down.
And that's nice. So no chaos to start this game as of yet. Nothing really that weird or wild to see. The drone gets a decent read on everything going on. The probe sees, yes, I'm not being Zergling rushed, which is great, and takes that gas, so no drone potential to just park on that extractor and take it. Although the Nexus timing usually kind of ends up making this not the worst thing in the world if it does happen. But Scarlett's going for some thumbs down sprays. And in ancient gladiatorial combat, the thumbs down from the Emperor would signify when an opponent was defeated that the winning gladiator did have to, in fact, execute them. So they would, but if they gave the thumbs up, they could come back to fight again. Now, 4 thumbs down, I believe, is Scarlett's way of saying she wants to win this best of 3 4-0, which would truly be one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Well, I mean, you do have to look at it like this, Nate. If your spray game is not on point against MCanning, you're basically already behind. So I like that Scarlett's come out with a strong strategy. She's showing up. It brings us a lot of hope for this matchup. Definitely means Scarlett's got some feist in her, and yeah, okay, we'll see how it goes. Stargate coming through for MCanning. Do you think MCanning's just gonna play like super Stargate heavy like he's done previously last season?
I kind of got that. I got a slight inkling that it might be something like that because he waited to start Warp Gate like a pretty significant amount of time. It was like Stargate and then the Stalker and the Adept, and then Warp Gate started. Like all that other gas got spent before Warp Gate began, which is not like the craziest thing that's ever happened in the world, but it does kind of give you an impression of where the priorities are. Get the early units out to defend. There's just a string of sprays. I think this might be going for the demoralizing as well, because, but the weird thing is, if I was MCanning, I would just assume that it was something else, because I mean, let's be honest, I feel like nobody has ever, you can't really hate on MCanning, you know what I mean?
This drone should never even still be here. It's literally here to spray.
Welcome to American StarCraft.
Priorities are in order.
Why is there a drone on the other side of the map while you still have lings? Well, you see, you can't spray with lings. Still I thought I was supposed to be the one doing dumb shit here. Okay, excuse me. Sorry about that. But yeah, oh my God. Well, Scarlett is meaning very hard to start. Just give me a second.
That's incredible. I've never seen a drone be chased by an Adept. It's dropping sprays as it runs.
Once again, I get to say I've seen something in a game of StarCraft I've never seen before. Good times. The lair starts up. I don't know. So, Wardy, I heard there's a rumor. So apparently Overlords can spray too. Someone sprayed in my base with an Overlord. So if we think about it, I guess if Scarlett eventually gets Overlord speed, it might just... Okay, you know what? Never mind. All memes aside, double Stargate in a fleet beacon at 5 minutes.
Yep.
What the hell is going on?
That's just the Void Rays and the MCanning build, right? This is kind of how he won last time. He got into some long games from playing Stargates early. The only thing I will say about this is that last time he did this was kind of like a newer style because of the Void Rays being changed. Whereas now, it's a bit more figured out. People are like, oh, I just built some Hydras and I kill you. So I'm really intrigued to see if Scarlett does go for that approach. She is making a lot of lings right now. I mean, sorry, he's going straight into carriers, but you know, the point still stands that I kind of feel like Scarlett knows a bit more of what MCanning's up to nowadays. So I don't feel like it should be as much of a problem as she had last season with it.
The Oracle does get in. It doesn't really get to do too much. A little bit of poking and prodding to get the drone that was out on the map. So the spraying game should be over. We'll keep, UNN will keep you guys tuned in as to whether or not another drone crosses the map to leave graffiti. But we do have 2 carriers that are getting pretty close to completion as this big flood of Lings makes its way over to MCanning's base. He does need to make sure he doesn't take too much damage before the rest of the army actually comes out. And I mean, honestly, at the same time, already showing the carriers, or actually, well, they're about to get scouted anyway, is still something that can be a problem.
Scott's already on the Hydra Den as well. She's already on +1 missiles. I think she has a very good idea of what's going to happen here. I don't think she's really I don't think she's really worried. I think she was expecting this. She's setting up well. That missiles came in early, right? So yeah, I'm full of confidence that Scarlett's in her mind got this under control and is very confident in what she wants to do, which is a good way to start.
Yeah, good times. This game has already started off so weird. I'm still getting the oxygen back in my brain from laughing so hard. But man, this has definitely been a very, very interesting, very, very fun beginning to this series, regardless of whichever way it goes. And you know, even when going for big Hydra can be one of those things that you do to kill somebody going for big carrier, if the Protoss player gets +2 and 6, 7 carriers, things get really weird if you try to just kill them early on. Like you can do a lot with that. And MCanning, you know, when they talk about practice and why people do certain strategies, even though it's like, isn't there this obvious weakness? Well, if you want to play a strategy that has quote unquote obvious weaknesses, it behooves you as a professional to build contingency plans that maybe don't always work, but against certain types of responses to your easily counterable strategy can work. And that's where you get those big dubs where you're like, oh my God, he went straight to carriers, but then he got disruptors so fast, he was able to kill 16 Hydralisks with 1 hit and the carriers mopped up everything else, right?
Yeah. I'm interested to see if Scarlett can do anything as she makes her way. Across the map here, a good clump of units down the bottom left. The carriers are staying pretty stationary. I wonder if Scarlett just sort of feels like this is okay as well, if she can keep MCanning on 3 bases. The problem is, though, if you keep him on 3, he's just going to get enough carriers to get 4 eventually anyway.
Well, chat was pointing out apparently Scarlett was laughing on cam as well, so all the memes were going quite nicely. The Hydra's poke the 3rd, and then the Ling Flood actually gets a cancel on the 4th base. So a nice little double move there by Scarlett to get some economic denial on the Protoss, because you really don't want the Protoss to be able to run away with this and get a crazy unstoppable amount of carries. Great disruptor hit though. This is kind of what I was talking about. Oh, doesn't just mass Hydras deal with this? A couple of well-placed disruptor shots absolutely eviscerate the Zerg army. And now, no, I don't think that a bunch of Hydras are going to be able to clean this up quite as easily. A massive, massive loss of resources for Scarlett as MCanning with 69 probes slams down that Zerg Hydralisk force.
Those disruptors were amazing. I mean, everyone hit like dead center. Scarlett was shaking her head and laughing a little bit at it. And here comes MCanning to come across the map, to fight on in, and to try and maybe just end this game. I don't think he should stop. I feel like he should go.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity here. I also think waiting for +2 attack at the very minimum is probably still a good move too, because Scarlett's +1 carapace is a ways off, and the DPS increase for carriers, especially off of that 2nd upgrade finishing, is going to be really big. So I mean, I don't mind it. Get a couple of more warped in units across, but I do feel like the time to strike is now. Another massive disruptor hit by MCanning. Another one. Can this man be stopped?
His disruptors are literally just magnetic. And they're attracted to Hydralisks right now. This is ridiculous. Every single time it just hits a mega cluster. I mean, 4 or 5 Hydras is a huge amount, and MCanning is coming to say, let's go. I told you I booked my ticket on the MCanning hype train. This is it, Nate. This is it.
An absolutely, I'm not going to say flawless game, but the control from this force has been perfect. The way that he's cut down the Zerg army, a reinforcing carrier will get grabbed, but the best thing about carriers in this situation, while he does have the disruptors that are going to kill all the hydras anyways, he can always fly over to the main. Doesn't matter. GG, the can man can take game number 1.
He can. I'm telling you, Nate, this is the hype train. MCanning's going to make the playoffs. The fact the crowd goes wild, it's going to be awesome. This was... You're right, those disruptors, they're not what you expect. Scarlett wasn't ready for them. She had no way to deal with them, and she walked right into every single one. That was...
Every disruptor volley that went out picked off like 8 supply of Hydralisks at a minimum, and that is one of those things that you absolutely, it's inexcusable. And that's why it's so hard though, because you're like, oh, I want to force the issue. I'm just going to send the Hydras across real quick, get a lot of them. And you're like, well, all of the other things in the game can actually kill Hydras. So bit of a tough start there for Sasha. And as we move on to the next map, it's going to be Gigantha, which that's a weird one. I have no idea how MCanning versus Scarlett plays out here.
I think it's with Stargates again. I mean, I think this is the map where Pro players like playing the Stargate style. They can sit back very well on 3 bases, then 4 bases, and from there, the rest of the bases come quite easily if you're playing that Stargate style. So, and it's obviously very difficult to end the game as Scarlett with like Hydras against Stargates in this map because it takes a long time to walk across it. So, yeah, I would say we see more of the same from MCanning, honestly, unless he wants to throw a curveball to exploit Scarlett, expect him to play the same, and then he goes like a single Voidra into Glaives, because then he could maybe catch Scarlett really off guard. So unless he does something like that, I'm just kind of expecting big Stargates.
Well, I have one more question for you, Wardy, as we load into Gigantha, and that is, which player is going to send their worker across the map to spray nonstop this game? Will Scarlett do it again, or is MCanning going to clap back because he won the first map after Scarlett did it to him?
Probably is both an option.
There's not really a risk to being wrong here, so you can just give a random answer if you really want.
I genuinely believe both is the safest option.
That's fair. That's fair. As we are loaded into Gigantha for game number 2. In the bottom left, we have the red Protoss player leading this series 1-0. He is MCanning.
And of course, in the upper right-hand side, our blue Zerg is Scarlett. Yeah, big map. I really do just expect more of the same from MCanning. This is kind of, for me, the reason people leave this map in the map pool.
Just because of how hard it is to try and push and kill someone here?
Because I think a lot of people like to answer the Stargate style with like a big attack, and I just think it takes you so long, because especially that big attack usually comes while the Protoss is on like 3 bases, right? Not when they're on 4. So you actually have to go all the way from the top of the map to the bottom. Like, the expansions don't put you any closer toward each other, so the Zerg has to go all the way across. So
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. One of the things that I like about Gigantha is the third base. By the way, there's the 3 sprays. I like the third base to the side of the natural, not the one that's like in front by the main. Just because it's actually one of the very few thirds we've had in a map in a long time. That's like, yeah, there's a ramp that leads up to it. It's connected to the natural, but this isn't like, it's not, you don't have a very wide angle to attack this base on if you want to like put a wall in front of that ramp, right? And then you can kind of rally everything in front of the natural, I guess is kind of what I'm talking about. It's a bit more defensible. So I do agree with you on that part. As a mech memer myself, I can see how playing a Sky Toss composition on this map would be a lot harder to break than on others.
Yeah, no, I quite like this map, actually. You know, I know TVZ is a bit memey on it and a bit difficult if you play in Bio, but the more I see of this map, the more I enjoy it compared to what I thought I would. You know, obviously when a map's kind of long, you expect it to give long games, but I don't necessarily think that makes it a good map because it gives long games. I feel like this map gives good long games because it gives you some good options in those longer games, and it's not every game on this map is 30 minutes long either, right? So yeah, I really like this. There's our Stargate coming down and MCanning. Again, there's the startup that we at least expect. We'll see if he makes any changes along the way.
Yeah. I would love to see it again. I am not going to complain about that one bit at all. If we get more carriers coming out, that's exactly the kind of insane stuff that makes me want to watch NA StarCraft. And I do mean that seriously. I enjoy the variety. I like that guys like MCanning play on this type of stage and beat big players. And I know he hasn't been doing super hot in this group thus far, but I think that his ability to play a style and play in a certain type of way with a certain level of control that you don't really get good practice against this, right? Playing ladder, because even if you play people who try mass void rays or carriers rush or whatever, which a lot of people do, they're not MCanning, you know, they're not making the smooth transitions into a disruptor that will kill all your hydras because you're like, oh, I can hit this timing, you know. It's not quite as simple as, oh, I just do this one thing, because MCanning has kind of mastered, at least to some degree, based on that last map, what I was talking about in regards to what do my opponents think is the best answer to my strategy, and how can I punish them for trying that?
Void Ray grabs an Ovi down this bottom side. Now an Oracle on the way, mate. I mean, nothing too wild just yet. I really want to see just what the next tech structure is, right? Because that's really going to tell us exactly what this is going to be, or even what comes out of the Stargate after the Oracle. So, kind of just sat here waiting. Obviously, third base will come before any of that. So, we got the third base started, and we get to find out what kind of game we're playing.
Indeed. And yeah, I love this third base. Like I was saying, if you're going to try to defend it, having a not super wide ramp, like the ramp is not the smallest, but it is also something that you can defend if you really need to. We're not talking about like the super crazy wide open, like pillars of gold third base, right? Where you're like, oh, there's 7 different ways that you can push this and no real way to wall it off. But Oracle goes in, Oracle comes out, Fleet Beacon though, and 2 more Stargates. Wardy, you called it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of obvious, right? Just because this is how he's been winning games in PvZ. This is obviously a style Scarlett has had some trouble against. And the map plays for it as well, so yeah. I like it. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. I don't see... The only way I think it would make sense to switch it up is to try and punish Scarlett by, like, making her expect something. Like, imagine he shows up with, like, Glaives now. Like, you know, you go Twilight after a Void Ray Oracle. You show up with Glaives. Maybe Scarlett just dies right now, you know? But that's hard to say, because then maybe Scarlett sees something to figure it out and she adapts her build, right? So that is the only way I would have liked it to change up, trying to take advantage of what he's already shown. But you could also think about it this way. If you lose in this game, you can still do that in game 3. If you feel like you need to switch it up a bit, you can still pull that trick to sort of be like, haha, here I am switching it up, and you're expecting the carriers again, right? So yeah, I really don't mind just doing this again on this map.
Oh, that's good logic, especially because the map supports it so well.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's a really good point to make, and we talked about that. But like, even this corner base, right? I've talked about how it's a little bit easier to defend against the ground, but you have these dead air spaces where it's not going to be super easy to punish an air unit or air army that's kind of dancing around there waiting for, you know, energy for a recall, or just bouncing back and forth, chipping away at pieces of your army. Like if the carriers end up pushing in that way, there's a lot you can do there. You have a massive amount of airspace that you can hide behind to rebuild interceptors outside of the main if it were to come to it. And not that your strategy should be based around, you know, just chilling outside of your opponent's base, building interceptors. But if you had to, on some maps you can't. And on this map, you can pretty easily. And he's going to mix in a couple more Void Rays this time around, which I do find a little bit curious. He must be expecting an attack sooner than he thinks he's going to be ready for, right?
Yeah, maybe a little bit afraid of... Yeah, I'm trying to think what he's maybe seen. I mean, you make Void Rays because you're afraid of, like, a fast Spire. So maybe he's just afraid, because right now, fast Spire isn't really a thing against this, because people are going Void Rays usually. But because he goes straight at carriers, maybe feels he's a bit weak to that. So he's just covering his bases. But yeah, it's obviously it's not really going to do much for him right now. I think eventually it's okay. I mean, I don't really get it, because he has a pretty good vision on what's going on now. So I think we're going to see more carriers. I think he was just afraid of something hitting like here now very quickly.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, is just worried about another big push, but something that he wouldn't be able to build the next wave of carriers in time for. But that +2 attack starting up misses the warp in block on the mineral line. So a couple of probes should go down. I don't think that if you're Scarlett, you're really looking for something big to scout, except maybe the timing of the robotics bay. And she will see that it is only now just finishing. But does she feel like she has the time to make a big attack before disruptors actually, come onto the stage? That's maybe a bigger question. She gets a cancel though on the 4th, while the carriers ran over to the natural. So at least a nice awareness of where those units were chasing the Zerglings.
I mean, Scarlett's just playing this entirely differently, right? Straight in 89 drones. You know, she's not cutting workers to make an attack. She's very happy to play this longer game. So she's going to hit the hive. She is going to build, I guess, a couple of Vipers here, at least. And then we'll see what else she wants to do. I mean, eventually the Spire makes sense. You start getting the Spire upgrades. You start getting into Corruptors. Generally, when Scarlett plays these kind of games, you're in for a long, long game. So, you know, the 90 drones to me says this could be like 30 plus minutes, because I don't really see Scarlett going so overboard on aggression that this game is going to, unless she like truly just breaks MCanning.
She is getting 4 Vipers right now, and there's no High Templar. So there is a potential that if she gets some good yoinks, she could just delete all the carriers like very quickly, one by one, before disruptors become a problem, as I say that. Okay, well, no, there you go. There's the disruptor denial. So she's being very bold out on the map, but kills the disruptor. You really, if she had been able to kill that +2 attack, that would have actually been potentially this game ending. The carriers are going to be absolutely worthless if they can't be ahead on upgrades, or at least even in like an end game 3-3 situation. Like the damage they get from those upgrades is just wild. And there it is. There's the big denial. So you're in a really awkward spot now. You're going to start just 1. You're going to get 2 cybernetic scores this time around, maybe, just in case. Yeah, 2. I like it.
If she can keep this 4th base cancelled as well, then MCanning's just in trouble. You know, last game he didn't really need the 4th base because the game ended before the 4th base really kicks in. But this game's not going in that direction, right? So the longer she denies that 4th 4, the slower MCanning is to max, the longer he is to build up a bank, and that's a pretty big deal.
And now here are the Vipers. There's 4 of them. They have enough energy for 2 yoinks each. One of them might be just 1, but there's a disruptor pulled and not quite pulled in the best spot, so it does need a second yoink for it. But unless you can force a big fight where everything can fight at once, like that's what the Viper's really good at. They chip away. They chip away, and when you duct the disruptors, it actually cancels their Nova. So the Viper just kind of perfectly counters a lot of what is here. Now all the carriers are fighting together. Disruptor comes out, but it doesn't get the shot off.
It does not. Yeah, these hiders are probably going to get cleaned up. Well, actually, you know what? No, they're not, because there's no interceptors left, Nate. Yeah, there's no interceptors left. Just as I was kind of like, oh, yeah, you know, these hiders are going to get cleaned up as Scarlett's rebuilding. No interceptors. With no interceptors, there's just nothing you can do. And Scarlett actually does go a lot more aggressive than I thought she was going to be, but I guess it makes sense with the denial she had on the 4th base again and again, and MCanning does not have the numbers to make it work on Jagannatha, and we are going to get ourselves a game 3 once again.
Yeah, really well done. Bringing the series nice and close. I think we're going to go to a quick break before we go into game number 3, ladies and gentlemen, so stay tuned for the conclusion of MCanning versus Scarlett. We are back once again, ladies and gentlemen, to find out who's going to win this series, as we are currently counting down in the lobby to start on Romanticide. MCanning winning with the carrier rush in game 1, not quite being able to pull it off in game number 2, though, Wardy.
Yeah, it was just the little things, right? You just didn't quite get in position. I actually just like Scarlett's setup a lot more. Instead of like 160 drone Hydra push, why not just 90 drones and then Hydra Viper? Because actually, with what MCanning is doing, it kind of counters it better as well, because he wanted to add disruptors in against a Hydra push anyway, but then you've got Vipers to abduct the disruptors. So yeah, I liked Scarlett's adaptation in terms of how to deal with it. Made sense to me. And now the big question is, does MCanning try it again?
That is the biggest question of all, as we have in the bottom right, tying things up after the last game. Great adjustments on her part. She is the blue Zerg. She is Scarlett.
Taking on in the upper left-hand side, our red Protoss. Can he do it? It's MCanning.
So carriers again, you thinking?
It's an interesting one. I really think now would be a good time to do what I'm talking about, like show the same thing, but don't do the same thing. Whether that's like you go Glaives after Stargate, or even if you go like Stargate and you go like Void Oracle like before, and then you just play like a very standard third base into like, you know, Twilight Robo after it, even that, and you just go like Charge or something, I feel like that would be good too. As a line of GLHFs have come down. I just feel like now Scarlett's figuring out how MCanning wants to do this, so now MCanning has to actually start to adapt. And there's other ways you can play like a carrier opening into like a ground army. Like you can go like double Stargate, like 4 carriers into like a ground army, and that could be a good way to bait Scarlett into being more aggressive than she should be, into like Charge and Storm being done in 8 minutes. So yeah, there's definitely kind of some ways to switch it up. I would like to see that. He might just go straight up carriers again. He thinks he can fix what he went wrong last time. But I think it's good to do something different at this point.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there. If you, at the very least, with how defensive you can be on this map, I do think that there's some insane potential for like wild turtle builds here that I don't know that we've actually seen many games like that yet, but doing something different and maybe transitioning into that carrier is like a late game strategy, right? Because one of the biggest things that we always talk about when it comes to playing versus Zerg, whether you're Protoss, Terran, or Zerg really, is if you play conservatively, if you play too standard and you don't really bring pressure, you don't really get the Zerg to feel like they need to invest in defense, they won't. A good Zerg won't, right? They'll do exactly what Scarlett did in the last game, which, as you pointed out beautifully, Wardy, she took that corner base very quickly. 90 drones, right to Hive, tons of upgrades, because by the time that you could get those 6 or 7 carriers, then Scarlett has a 2 upgrade lead, maxed out supply, and Vipers. So this kind of comes down to a little bit of that talk we were having about like, oh, I'm prepared for these types of responses to my weird, unusual build. And while disruptors can deal with the Hydras, yes, that build is not perfect, because if the Zerg does play crazy greedy and gets those early Vipers, you're not going to have High Templar. So what are you going to do? You're going to try to get a Templar Archives and the Robo Bay at the same time while you're building carriers on 3 half bases? No, that's never going to work. So you do have to be flexible on the other side of the coin if you want to be able to take these big series. And I think that's what's going to decide this for MCanning, is whether he can kind of bounce back and change things up enough that it's not like reading an open book for Scarlett.
I'm with you 100% of the way, Nate. I would love to see the switch ups. We'll see what Scarlett even wants to do as well, right? I mean, she doesn't necessarily have to let it go like to that stage in the first place. She could maybe do something a bit more aggressive. She could play like playing Bane into Hydras as well. Although I guess if MCanning wants to just keep on doing Stargates, then it makes perfect sense to do what she's been doing, because her setup's been pretty good against it. Just the one thing she fell to in that first game was truly the disruptors. So
yeah. And we do have the Void Ray catching another Overlord in the Northeast. So this is really nice, because obviously we talk about Void Rays and Phoenix for clearing out Overlords, and the Void Ray has gotten some love in recent times, and that's pretty much the biggest reason why we see them as often as we do now. But typically you're like, oh, and how far out do I want to send it to random corners if it doesn't get back in time for a defense, or, you know, if you don't find any overlords and you're just kind of chilling out there. But the Oracle grabs 2 workers and okay, I got nothing. I don't know what to say. Just a fleet beacon.
Yeah.
Again, okay, whatever. Take it away.
Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think it's broke. That's the problem, right? Like,
I do believe that this strategy has not been winning 100% of the time. So
yeah.
Now I'm worried. But if there's any way to try to spin this to be like positive for MCanning, here's my meme. Here's the meme answer that I will give. It is that Scarlett would be thinking the same thing as us, right? That's the meme answer, which is, oh, there's no way that they'll just do it like that again, right? And of course, well, that's, you know, maybe they don't prepare because of that, but I'm interested to see what Scarlett does when she scouts this.
She's doing the exact same build anyway. +1 missiles already. That's 100% going to be for Hydras. 100%. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, like, yeah.
Hey, maybe +2 for the carriers doesn't get canceled.
Yeah,
I think that's a game losing upgrade to lose personally.
I think so as well. I mean, I like Scarlett this time Infestation Pit right away as well, right? So she's just going to go to Hive right away and just go to Vipers. And I want to believe that there's a way to beat that, but like I just feel like it puts Scarlett in perfect position to start shutting MCanning down. And you know what might be cool if MCanning doesn't go Disruptors? What if he goes Storm behind these carriers? Because then he has feedback for the Vipers as well. And then he's got Storm for the Hydras instead of the Disruptors. Yeah, it's not that instant kill effect, but it's good enough. It's something to help against the Hydras. I think it costs
too much. I think the cost is too much. The maintenance cost, at least, for that. I mean, you need to have several of them. They need to build up a lot of energy over time. They're way more vulnerable. They have a lot less health than a Disruptor, right? Weirdly enough, like I'm with you that I would love to see it. I just don't. If Scarlett hits the same timing as the last game, I don't know that there can be carriers with +2 in large enough numbers to win the fight, and enough Templar with energy to back them up to not be, you know, as easily thwarted by the Vipers. I guess what I'm trying to say is MCanning's really trying to do a lot off of 3 bases in this game, whereas Scarlett's like, yes, I can take my 4th for free. Oh, I can take my 5th for free because nothing is coming. I don't have to worry about anything until MCanning has like inconceivable number of carriers that I will probably attack before he has. So I feel like that you take all the pressure off the Zerg.
Do you think the Void Rays didn't exactly help either as well? Like, because he's unit gain.
No, they don't. They're useless.
Yeah.
In a real fight, they're completely worthless against everything. Like, even when people are like, oh, aren't they good against Corruptors? I'm like, yes, if you can get the Corruptors to not shoot the Void Rays, because the Corruptors do burst damage, right? Void Rays are all about DOT. They don't do a high amount of damage. They just attack very quickly over time. So if they can stand and fight, that's when they're going to be the strongest. But if your opponent has like a burst type composition that can kind of knock all those flimsy units down quickly, they don't provide value for you. The most they're going to do is like maybe like 15, 20 damage to a Hydra before they die.
Yep. No, I agree. I think the Void Rays are like almost an insurance policy against Corruptors being there, but then see, like, if you go for like a ton of Void Rays initially, then transition carriers, I still like them because at least you can harass a lot with the Void Rays initially, so they give you extra value there. But that's...
Yes, but he's not doing that with the Void Rays, right? That's the
exactly.
problem.
They're just additional Voids, which could have been an extra carrier or two, and then, you know, then you have more carriers. I mean, hello, that's fantastic when you're up against a whole bunch of Hydras. So yeah, I'm completely with you. It's definitely not... It's definitely something that isn't helping. I mean, Scarlett, she goes double Spire against the exact carbon copy setup of last time, and because of that, I'm kind of a believer. Obviously, there's still +2 attack on the Cyber Core coming up for those carriers, so this time we will have that. So we'll see if that makes enough of a difference. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, even if that makes enough of a difference, I still love that Scarlett has the Spires behind this to get ready to go for the massive Corruptors against those carriers.
Yeah, and that's like one of the most difficult balancing things when you're trying to play the game with this type of army, is that the carriers, like, assuming we have 2 more that are about to finish, right? So 7 carriers on their own can be somewhat scary. With this many Hydras, they're not. This many carriers, if the Hydras attack into them with like 3 or 4 cannons and 5 or 6 batteries, then the carriers are very scary, right? So it kind of, you need to be able to control the rules of engagement when you play this style, that you can have that backup, or you need to initiate the fight with like a big grab. Either the Zerg isn't looking, or they don't get the abducts off in time. You get a disruptor shot in the middle of the mass, kind of like how the defense was done in game number 1. But Scarlett is going to make her first move forward, and when you try to take this base, this is definitely... Oh, she killed her own overseer. Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. But yes, Scarlett's goal should just be to contain. Don't let MCanning get a 4th, and then chip away. Use the extra money, use those wild number of resources, and just don't take a fight on MCanning's turns. Don't fight him in front of 30 photon cannons and shield batteries. There you go. Yep. Perfect abduct, easy deletion, and this is why Vipers are good units, bro.
Yep, this is why I just would have liked to see the high temp button. Because the disruptors, they're great against the Hydras, but they just don't do anything here against carriers, right? Oh! Well, those disruptors get in that. I mean, I don't know how they
resource-wise, not even close. That's resource-wise not even close, though, to what? But MCanning just lost in terms of... It's like, is the aren't resources lost tab say that it's even? Yes, but losing a couple of carriers is far worse than losing a couple of Hydralisks.
Especially when you've been on 90 drones the entire time. Still 12 workers up. Yeah.
Well, Scarlett, if MCanning sits back long enough, or Scarlett gets bored and doesn't want to attack for whatever reason, then, you know, could approach some serious levels of resources banked up. Because look, she's eaten her whole half the map by now. She's got all the bases.
Yeah. It's kind of rough, isn't it?
Yoink.
Abduct in. Corruptor's gonna have a good time there. Takes down a carrier. Yeah. I mean, this is just gonna be repeat. Now we've got a storm on the way. I mean, you need that as well, though, against the Corruptors, right? Because now you just, you need storm voids, and then the storms on the Corruptors can help the carriers to fight them too. So I think that's pretty important.
This is the first Zealot run by we've seen versus a Zerg today. I think this might be.
Feel like it might have been, right?
Yeah, MCanning is going to finally bring some pressure, some real pressure over towards Scarlett, and actually ends up getting a pretty good return for his investment. Kills quite a few of the drones on the east side, almost kills this base. There is a disruptor here. I do not know why. I think it's about to just die. Yes. Oh, no. Okay, well, there you go. Nice exit frags.
Yeah, so something extra done. Some drones go down, but Scarlett's still just sat on 92 workers, so not really much of a problem right now.
Storm is finishing, though. We have, I assume, some Templar on the map. There's 3. So if you play ball with feedback, now there's a bunch of cannons and batteries. So attacking into an entrenched Protoss force like this gets a little bit trickier. That's why Scarlett's going for this Lurker Den, which makes a tremendous amount of sense. It's a very good move to make. And MCanning's got his +3 attack. So yeah, you do not want to try to engage this like this. I don't. He's using a disruptor to clear the changelings. I'm going to scratch my head on that one for a long time.
Yeah, nice little bit of damage on the Corruptors, but for the most part, they are getting out of here. So they are going to get away. And, well, again, we've got a forward 4th base, and it still comes down to that contain idea, right? Like, MCanning's never had the money to properly get maxed out because this base is just so fresh. So if Scarlett can keep up this pressure, you can see MCanning straight away off to the left side, 5th base. Yes, please. I mean, you just obviously a Scarlett again. It's one of the targets now to stop the 5th base getting up, and you're just going to keep on mining from what you own. 7 bases that you own at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, MCanning's doing some good stuff to clean creep, but the creep is actually ridiculous as well. It's just all over the place. So Scarlett is extremely well set up. She's building a ton of spore crawlers. She's even got the lurk den down. She wants to add some lurkers in as well. Pretty good.
Vipers incoming. Yoink. Yoink. Yeah. That's what I was talking about, by the way, with the Corruptors and their burst damage, right? If they get the chance to shoot, whatever they're going to attack will just die in the first volley, and then the Corruptors can always retreat, which makes it so difficult to try and engage them, because it's just that burst damage versus DOT. The carriers, the Void Rays, they need time to kill this stuff, but the Vipers are eliminating the ability for MCanning to actually have a real fight with his full force. And now that he's been building Void Rays because he's scared of Corruptors, he's only got 5 carriers. So, I don't know. All you need to do is keep the Lurkers alive while they kill everything, right? And then that should do it. So we'll see. We'll see how this one plays out, because the Vipers, we need to keep in mind, also have Parasitic Bomb, which as the number of Void Rays increases, the Vipers become more cost effective with that Parasitic Bomb, because each one will hit more units.
Speed Hydras around the side, gonna get a couple of cannons. Voids are coming through, and an Overseer gets picked off. As we do have our disruptors will not land. I mean, look at this Spore Crawler forest that Scarlett has set up with lurkers in amongst all that. Obviously, MCanning isn't really set up to attack anyway, but even if he tries to, all that defense is a huge problem. You've got to get through all of that, and we're finally getting kind of our late game that we maybe expected in this series because of the way MCanning likes to play with the Stargates, but I gotta say, I don't feel like I felt good for MCanning this entire time.
Yeah. It's like he's kind of been able to do what he's wanted to do, but he's never been able to max out, and now the economy is being threatened again, and with the lurkers, like they are always going to be a big factor now. The Vipers come up, bunch of big abducts. Yes, you can feedback them while the tongue is out. That does not cancel the abduct itself. Yeah, it's easily the hardest part of playing with this type of army. It's just dealing with the Vipers. They have been disgustingly cost effective in this game, and it's opened up so much more opportunity for Scarlett to do other things like these little Hydra attacks, because all of a sudden we have to keep a couple of our carriers away from the rest of the army now, and then all the interceptors die, and then you're going to lose more probes. So then that very small mineral bank that MCanning has, guess what it's going to get spent on? Interceptors. that's it. So and interceptors are not that expensive, and that really says a lot. He's not rich. 54 probes and struggling to maintain that 4th and 5th.
Look at the resources lost too. It's like a 6,000 difference in favor of Scarlett. What? Hello? Like, that's not the way around this is necessarily meant to be when Scarlett's been up this many workers this entire time. Like, no. So yeah, Scarlett's got all of the control in this game, and it's definitely not one she could just run into and end right away, but she is doing it right. She's still putting on a lot of pressure. She's keeping things active. I like it so far. I really think that Scarlett's just gonna slowly make MCanning bleed out here, and it's kind of a tough way to go, but yeah.
Scarlett just got a little impatient in game 1. That's it, right? Scarlett got a bit impatient in game 1, forced the issue probably before she should have, and in game 2, great adjustments, easy clap. Game 3, so far, great adjustments. So far, easy clap. Although the army has been reached for MCanning. He has his big army. So now it comes down to don't die to a beige trade, but also you're going to have to kill quite a bit of Zerg because there's a 6,000, 7,000 bank. So if you think you kill all the corruptors and you're fine, Scarlett has enough money to build quite a few more.
Well, I mean, this is what MCanning needed, if anything, right? Because he's not going to have the bank to rebuild, so he just has to have that one big kind of fight, but he needs this fight to be devastating, and it needs to happen here, because if it doesn't happen here, Scarlett will just rebuild and go. Whereas at least if it happens here, you can catch the reinforcements, but if it's going to happen here, he's got to make it happen throughout, and Yoink goes down, minus 400, 400. If it happens here, it has to happen through all those spores and lurkers. It's just not happening. The 5th base goes down to a lurker, and it feels like even moving to the bottom side here from MCanning was all in, even though he's not committed through.
Yeah, and that's the hard part about it, is as long as you play non-committal, then the Zerg player can always just be like, okay, I'm just going to yoink whatever I can. And then since you don't want to actually engage in a full-on fight, you can't really punish me because I've pulled this unit out of range of being saved by anything that you have. That's just smart Zerg play. And that's why we have this incredibly disgusting, weird-looking resources lost tab, because there's been no answer to the Vipers, even though there's a Templar. Doesn't matter. The Templar reaction time is too slow, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, you can click feedback a million times on a Viper with no energy. It's not going to do anything.
And you need a feedback when those guys fly in, not after they've already picked off your units. So
yeah, I mean, at this pace, Scarlett can just chip away at this army forever until MCanning just runs out of money.
Yep.
The hard part about this, he needs to actually force a real fight. He needs to force a real fight where all of these units can actually have an engagement where they're all contributing to the battle. If you get pulled over cliffs, then your Archons can't do anything to help you against the Corruptors, right? If you're kind of just pulling away every time you get close to the enemy, if you're waiting for these motherships and these big units, they're always going to get singled at first. And you're like, oh, I'll just go back and build another mothership. Like, minus 800, right? Like, we keep a tab on the motherships that are built in professional StarCraft for a reason.
Yeah.
You can write them off on your taxes. That's how worthless they are.
Oh, and expensive. Man,
Exactly.
it's I mean, 400 is literally MCanning's bank right now as well, right? Like, it's kind of a serious amount of money to add a Dark Shrine into. DTs? I mean, Nate, have you seen how many units and Spore Crows there are on this map? Like, I'm not really convinced about Dark Shrine right now.
I think of DTs as an MCanning spirit animal, but if he's building them in this situation, this is not an MCanning Dark Shrine, you know? That's not the Canman Dark Shrine that we talk about, that we think about when we talk about MCanning. That is the oh crap, I'm now realizing that I may be in over my head Dark Shrine. Because obviously, as you pointed out, there's a million spores. There are like 8 overseers with the army. There are 8 overseers in total on the map, excuse me. So yeah, there's a good amount of detection. I don't think Invisiboys are the answer.
No, yeah.
Also,
I feel like
since you mentioned it, there are 65 spore crawlers on the map.
Like, okay, maybe you find like a base to get into, and what are you gonna do? Like, kill a couple of drones? Like, you need so much more than that. It's not like you have the bank to just give up a couple of DTs here and there to get a couple of drones, right? It's just way too passive for me. I don't disagree. Like, I don't necessarily think he can attack in, but he has to attack in, otherwise he just keeps on bleeding out. But maybe that's the best bet, that maybe Scarlett just attacks into him and then messes up. But
if you're a Protoss player and your complaint is that you can't attack into the Zerg because you're both maxed out, but they have 65 spore crawlers, you waited too long. that's the answer to your question. You know, if it takes this much time to be able to build the army that you want to try to have a fight with, it's, you know, something went amiss elsewhere in the game that opened the door for the Zerg to say, I can put 65 drones into anti-air turrets.
Yep.
And you can't bring the cannons with you. And if you could, you probably still couldn't bring them with you on creep. So it's only going to get worse, as Scarlett is going to say, I'm stupid rich. I am going to just throw units at you until you eventually give up because you don't want to actually fight me. It's like, oh, well, great recall. But yes, well, now the other base will die, along with a Void Rain carrier.
That wasn't a necessary episode, but we'll allow it. What's the blink for? For his remax of Stalkers that he can't afford? No, I mean, I feel like I'm being a bit mean with like.
No, I'm one of MCanning's biggest fans, but I can't lie to you. This has been one of the most painfully passive games I've ever seen. I mean, when I think about things that are like passive or like passive aggressive, I'm like, this game is more passive than responding to a text message with just the letter K. You know, like that's the least commitment you could possibly make to tell somebody to piss off. But yet here we are. We found something that has even less emotion in it.
Yeah, not really looking good. I mean, here we go. Some storms. Scarlett's gonna back away, obviously taking some damage. I like that at least Scarlett's kept up the pressure on the other side of the map, right? You know, she's always running Lings and Hydras around here. She's always keeping up some damage. She's not just relying on her own like mega army, because, well, why? You know, why? When you can absolutely put damage on like this, you know, going to turn around, few zealots, warp in defensively, that's not enough. So yeah, I like this. And obviously, again, when money's stretched out thin for MCanning, stuff like that's only going to help even further. And the storms come down again. We are 32,000. Scarlett's lost exactly 16,000 resources right now. That is twice the efficiency from Scarlett in this game. That's actually unheard of when you're playing against like a Skytoss army like this, I think. Like, you really never see that, honestly. I know Zerg have fighters and all of that, but like, you still just don't really ever see it.
No. Well, what we thought would happen did happen, and still tried to avoid the army. Just tried to avoid it. Didn't want to fight around all those spores that Scarlett had 5 years to build, 1 million of. And half the army got abducted. And I think Scarlett might say that now she's ready to take this fight. These Corruptors are very close. I'm like, I do see a world where the Archons kill all of them, but then you remember that Scarlett has 5,000, 8,000 in the bank.
She can literally rebuild every Corruptor, and it's just not going to matter, right?
You're wiping up the mess with $100 bills.